This is draft season. My name is John Schmeelk, joined by Tony Pauline, talking NFL draft prospects with you. It's all brought to you by Tommy Hilfiger, a PVH brand and an official partner of the New York Football Giants. Just remember, this is not a Giants podcast, folks, despite the background and my little quarter zip here. This is an NFL draft podcast. We talk everything NFL draft with no focus on any particular team, just trying to get everybody ready to go with the NFL draft now, Tony. Oh, boy, we're getting there. Only about 4 months away. And, of course, we have Shrine Bowl and Senior Bowl coming in January. We have the Combine coming in February. It should be a lot of fun as we move forward here as things start to pick up in this draft class, and what it's going to look like sort of solidifies a little bit.
As Andy Williams once aptly sang, it's the most wonderful time of the year, right? I mean, bowl season is great. You can sit back while you're enjoying your holiday, whatever holiday you may celebrate. And there'll be 4 college games on your TV from noon till 11, 12 o'clock at night. And, we're coming to the end of the NFL season. You got the college football playoffs coming this weekend. And it is the most, and then we go into, like you said, the Shrine, the Senior, and everything else. Like Andy Williams said, it's the most wonderful time of the year.
It is. Things are happening. There's a lot of football to watch. Let's get into it, Tony. Big show today. We're going to talk about a few more early entrants into the draft, underclassmen that have made their declarations. More will come after some of these bowl games in the college football playoffs, obviously. Then we'll go through some of these bowl games, and we'll talk about some of the prospects Tony has his eye on as we head into this NFL draft process and 2023. Boy, it goes fast. So early entrants here, Tony. A couple guys that we didn't touch on last week's show that had already declared, but let's get to them now. Let's start with Anthony Richardson. This is a player that we've talked about a lot on the show over the course of the year. The quarterback from Florida. Big year, good runner, flashed some passing ability, still very raw, but he's going to roll the dice here and hope a team decides to take a chance on him in the first round. For me, this feels like a guy, and again, maybe I'll be proven wrong again. An NFL team will just bet on the traits and pick him really early, but this feels like a end of first round. The team wants the 5th-year option on the quarterback, so they're going to try to sneak him in around pick like 29 or 30 and try to get him for 5 years to develop him.
It could happen. I think it's insane if that happens. I mean, the fact is this, is he that much better than Malik Willis, who went through the process, who played at the Senior Bowl last year, who looked really good? I mean, you could say maybe he's got more upside than Malik Willis, who went in the 3rd round. But I don't think, as far as being a passer, being a quarterback, I think Malik Willis is much further ahead than Anthony Richardson.
Wow.
I mean, I wouldn't take him in the first 3 rounds, Anthony Richardson. I think he needs that much work. Could it happen? Well, Tim Tebow went in the 1st round. So, yes, it could, in fact, happen that he goes in round 1. I'm going to be very surprised if he's selected in the top 40 picks. Maybe a team in the top of round 1 takes him. If you draft Anthony Richardson, you have to sit him in 2023. You can't play him. I mean, because all he does is flash. You look at his completion percentage. I mean, the Florida State game, what did he complete? 1/3 of his throws? I mean, that's disastrous. This is, in my opinion, this is a case where the guy definitely should not have entered the draft. But as you said, he's going to roll the dice. We'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, and the bigger problem with him, Tony, is that he's not even going to have an opportunity at any of these games, whether it's the Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl, to have teams fall in love with him. And, pro days for quarterbacks, in my opinion, are generally a waste of time. As long as they're not terrible, teams are going to be, oh, he's got a good arm. Ooh, who cares? And then the Combine, same deal. We know he's got great traits. So he's not really going to have an opportunity here to show teams that he's really progressing as a passer.
Pro Day wasn't a waste of time for Zach Wilson, right? But
you know what, though? Maybe it was.
You're right. Well, it was a waste for the Jets, maybe. Right. But, I mean, I can absolutely see Richardson going and blowing up the Combine and wowing everyone with tremendous passes down the field with speed and accuracy in shorts and a T-shirt, and everybody falling in love with him. That's part of the problem, though.
Right. No, 100% I'm with you. All right, let's go to another guy that I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, I feel like the preseason opinion of this player was really high, and maybe some of the luster is coming off a little bit. Penei Sewell's younger brother, Noah Sewell, the linebacker, Tony. What happened to him this year?
Yeah, well, actually, we talked about this in one of the earlier shows. Now, let's first go through his process as I reported as per entering the draft. I was told the big holdup was, did Noah Sewell, was he going to be satisfied knowing that if he entered the draft, he was not going to be a first-round pick? And it was, if he was hung up on being a first-round pick, he was going to have to go back. Obviously, he has decided that he's fine with being a day 2 pick. Now, I talked to a lot of people out there in Oregon about Sewell, and what they said was it was more a schematic type of thing. It was more a system thing where he wasn't just asked to run to the ball and make the tackle. It was more gap assignment, setting the edge, that sort of thing, which really cut down on his stats. And he didn't have the massive season that everyone expected him to have. It was a different system where he was asked, to be more disciplined rather than just run to the ball. I think the thing about Sewell is I'm going to be very interested to see what his testing times are at the combine or pro day. The 40 time, the shuttle time, the 3-cone time, the 3-cone time. He sort of reminds me of a Manti Te'o type of linebacker on film, in that he's not the greatest athlete, but he's got it going on between the ears. He's very instinctive. He's almost clairvoyant. That I think will be a determining factor where he goes in day 2. It'll be interesting. What teams will do is they will reach out to the Oregon coaching staff to find out why his production was so down. And if the Oregon coaching staff gives teams the same feedback that I heard, it was a schematic thing. He wasn't asked to make a lot of plays on the ball. He was asked gap assignment, setting the edge, and those sorts of things. I think he'll be okay. If they just say, well, he had a down year, he's going to fall into day 2.
All right, let's head over now to Bijan Robinson, Tony, the running back out of Texas. Probably, in my, thinking about it, maybe the best running back prospect to come out since Saquon Barkley. I think you can make that argument. Has a chance to be a top 15 pick, top 10, we'll see. But this guy checks every box: size, speed, elusiveness. He is a freak show.
Be interesting to see if the Houston Texans, who got 2 first-round picks theirs, and the Cleveland Browns, with that second pick, in the middle of round 1, go with Bijan Robinson, because they wanted Breece Hall last year in this past April's draft. But the Jets traded up to get Breece Hall. Bijan Robinson, is like Breece Hall. He's a first-round prospect who plays a second-round position. But I think Bijan Robinson is just so talented in every area. He should go first round. I do believe he's going to go bottom half of round 1. I'm speculating with the Texans right now because they got 2 first-round picks. Maybe the Bills later on. I'd be shocked if Bijan Robinson is still on the board by the time the first round ends next April.
Yeah, and we'll see. The Texans might be happy with Dameon Pierce. He had a heck of a rookie year for them too. So I mean, we'll see about that. But yeah, certainly a really solid running back class this year. If you're looking for a running back, I think you'll be able to find one on day 2 this year, and find some really good players, Tony. All right, let's go to Jordan Addison. Receiver, was at Pittsburgh for a long time. He caught a lot of passes from Kenny Pickett there 2 years ago. Transferred to USC, was very productive for Caleb Williams. I watched him this week, Tony, and he might be, out of all the receivers I've watched, and I've watched most of the top ones, I just have not watched Quentin Johnson yet out of TCU. He might be my favorite. He seems like a really safe player. He's 6 foot. He's only 175. I think maybe make teams more comfortable, get that weight up a little bit. Good. He doesn't wow you, but he's really good hands, good route runner. He's smooth, adjust to the ball. There really is no hole in his game.
Well, if you're going to compare him to Quentin Johnson's got the physical skills. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's probably faster, he's probably better deep threat. But as far as being a complete receiver, Addison is head and shoulders above him. And most of the other receivers in this class, whether it be Jalen Hyde or anybody else, with his route running, with his ability to separate from defenders, with the consistent hand, with the fundamentals, catching the ball consistently away from his body with his hands, which is what you want to see. You mentioned the frail body. Had some injuries this year, got to see what the 40 time is, because he never really presented himself as a guy that's got the second gear, the guy that's got the home run hitting speed. You kind of add that up. It probably means if he's going to go first round, it's going to be in the later part of round 1, but he's still a real good sort of plug and play type of receiver who I think can be productive early in his NFL career.
Yeah, Tony, you watch him, and my first impression, and I wrote in my notes, I just wrote good speed, right? But then I watched him more, and I'm like, he keeps running away from everybody, and no one ever catches him. So I squeezed a little very good speed into my notes, because I feel like the more you watch him, the more you see guys, he separates, and guys don't catch him once he does.
He has a quick burst. He's a Rondell Moore type, in the sense that he's got that great 3 to 5 yard burst where he can get that separation. I don't think he's going to be a 4.32 guy at the combine. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, my guess was that he would be, I think I wrote on my notes, looks like a 4-4-3 guy.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
kind of what he looked like to me. And to me, you look at some of the best receivers in the NFL, Tony, they're sometimes in the high 4-4s. So
It's all about separation. It's
right.
all about, it's not about, being able to run a 4-2 in a straight line. It's about being able to catch the passes on the crossing patterns. It's about, being able to run a 6-yard route and quickly get into your route, come out of your route, be prepared, stay low exiting your route, be prepared to catch the ball with your hands away from your frame. He does that all very well. But again, as we've seen time and time again in the draft, especially early in the draft, they like those physical freaks because NFL coaches think they're going to take a guy like Quentin Johnson, who is tall, is fast, is explosive, but doesn't run good routes and occasionally drops some passes. They will teach him to do the things that come naturally to Jordan Addison.
Yeah, if you're a Giant fan and you're watching this, I would circle Jordan Addison on your little sheet there. The Giants will be picking in the low 20s. He might be a guy to keep in mind as you get closer to draft day. All right, Tony, one other early entrance here. No, actually, we got all four. There was one other piece of college football news I want to get to you on, because I haven't watched Wake Forest much, but their quarterback, Sam Hartman, entered the transfer portal. And some people think he's a really good quarterback, but the system of Wake Forest might scare NFL teams away. So what do you think that process is going to be like for him, and what's a good fit for him so maybe he can improve his draft stock next year?
Well, the word is he's going to Notre Dame. So I don't know if it's a good fit for him, or he's just a guy who always want to play for Notre Dame. I mean, most guys want to play quarterback at Notre Dame. I think the perfect fit for him would be UCLA. Go out there and play with Chip Kelly. I mean, he's got that sort of mobility. He is an RPO type of quarterback. He's a guy that can create havoc. I think that would be, and UCLA is going to lose their quarterback to the NFL or to graduation this year. I think that would be a natural fit. I think the NILs would be, more opportunity there at UCLA. But the word is it's going to be Notre Dame. That could be his preference, playing in that system. I'd like him more as a quarterback that you roll him out of the pocket, you let him move around. He can play from the pocket. He does a good job of it. It's an interesting choice. You got him, and then you got Jaden Daniels of LSU, who really played better as the season went on and started to basically, meet the expectations of what people had of him as a freshman at Arizona State. He's going back to LSU. So it's interesting to see these guys who, in large part because of NIL opportunities, are deciding, well, I'm going to stay in college for another year and either stay where I'm at or transfer someplace else.
All right, Tony, I got one Twitter question I want to ask you before we start doing our bowl preview. If a team, I'm going to give you three positions. The fan wants to know what position in this group you'd be most likely to find a good player in this year's draft in terms of just strength of position. Guard, cornerback, inside linebacker. Which group do you like best in this year's draft coming up?
Are we talking overall or early on?
I would say first 3 rounds. How about that?
Yeah, if we're looking first 3 rounds, let me look at my board here. You got to wait. I'm told DJ Turner of Michigan's going to enter the draft. Keely Ringo, I'm told, is going to enter the draft. Cam Smith has already announced he's entering the draft. So is Joey Porter of Penn State. Chris Abrams-Drain, who was expected to enter the draft.
The Oregon corner too, right? Gonzalez?
Right. Gonzalez, correct. We talked about Noah Sewell before. He's going to enter the draft. So it's really not bad. I'm going to say, Sewell is your top inside linebacker, but he's second. I'll go with cornerback right now as far as if you're looking at the early part of the draft, at least the first 3 rounds. When I look at my guard board right here, is Skronsky of Northwestern, is he a guard or is he a tackle? Broderick Jones of Georgia is supposed to enter the draft. I have him on my guard board. It's not a bad guard board, but the thing with the guard board is, if you want one, you better get him early because it really drops off after the first 3 or 4 guys.
All right, good stuff, folks. Go, if you're a Giant fan, go download, or just any football fan, go download the Giants TV streaming app. You can get it for free on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app with all the best Giants content, including this podcast, by the way. You can watch these 2 handsome men with the best hair in the business talking NFL draft with you. And hopefully Eric Crocker will eventually come back with us as he continues to have his week-long celebration on the West Coast. And Eric will be with us when we start the new year in 2023, by the way. I think he's caught traveling today. All right, so Tony, let's get to some of these bowl games, and we'll talk about One or two players from each that kind of jump out to you here coming up. It's going to be a busy week with college football. Oregon, North Carolina, we mentioned a couple players already. And then you also have Drake May, who's a quarterback that's not coming out this year, but that's a guy that you can put a big neon yellow highlighter on for the top of the 2024 draft.
Yeah, Drake May, who's obviously in high demand. I mean, you know, we got two free agencies now. We got free agency in the NFL draft and free agency in free agency in the NFL and free agency in college football. And there's all kinds of talk about Drake May and NIL deals. Is he transferring here? So, I mean, I think North Carolina's kind of lost the luster because Josh Downs announced he's going to enter the draft. Probably not going to play in this game. As far as Oregon's concerned, a lot of their top guys are not playing this game. One guy from Oregon to keep an eye on, their center, Alex Forsyth. He's going to be a day 3 pick, but this is a guy who is smart, fundamentally sound. He's not the greatest athlete in the world, but he makes that, or he basically is the straw that stirs that Oregon offense. I mean, he does everything so well, and he's done it consistently. Has some back issues from what I'm told, which is going to push him deep into the draft. But Alex Forsyth is one of those guys that could end up as a 5th, 6th round pick. And then if he's healthy, be a 10-year starter in the NFL. He's that good of a player.
All right, let's jump to another bowl game here, Tony. Oklahoma, Florida State versus the pass rusher for Florida State. Not going to play in this game. He's a guy that's probably going to be a 1st-round pick. What other players are you keeping an eye on in this contest?
I mean, Fabian Lovett, the defensive tackle, played inside of versus is a day 3 type of pick. Jamie Robinson and Akeem Dent. Robinson's a safety. Akeem Dent is sort of that safety, that hybrid safety linebacker from Florida State. Those are middle round guys. And those are primarily, I mean, Oklahoma, the big player there was Anton Harrison, who has already entered the draft. He's out west training, so that kind of takes some of the luster off for Oklahoma. Be interesting to see. I have not heard whether or not Eric Gray is going to play in this game. I know he's entering the draft. He's a senior. Eric Gray is a terrific running back. I mean, you look at the recent history of running backs that have come out of Oklahoma. They're very productive at the next level. Gray, if he plays, is a guy to watch. I think he's going to be a real good mid-round selection who's going to be productive on Sunday. And then Marvin Mims, the Oklahoma, the explosive receiver return specialist, is another guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'll throw out one other player from Oklahoma. You want an old school, like fullback, H-back, tight end type, Braden Willis, who could be a day 3 pick too, Tone.
And that's what Oklahoma has done in the past. They get those types of West Coast fullbacks, if you will. When
Tom Rathman.
Yeah, when the league used to use West Coast fullbacks, he lines up in the backfield, can be used as a blocker, pass catcher out of the backfield. I mean, sort of a Swiss Army knife type of guy at that position.
All right, let's jump to Texas and Washington, Tony. You like an edge rusher for the Huskies?
Yeah, they've got a couple of players, the Washington Huskies. They have a redshirt sophomore by the name of Raylan Trice, who I know is considering the draft. If he enters the draft, Trice is probably a day 2 selection. He's had a monster year. He basically unseated Tupola Fetui, who's been injured, who was outstanding 2 years ago as a sophomore. Very good chance he could enter the draft. Jackson Kirkland has had a solid year. Remember, Jackson Kirkland last year was projected as a mid-round choice, had a bad ankle injury, which kind of sidelined him, something that could have been career-threatening. So he had to pull back from from entering the draft, underwent surgery, had a solid year in 2022. Wasn't great, kind of moved positions, moved from tackle to guard. Kirkland, if he is selected, will be a later round choice, more of a utility type of offensive lineman at the next level who can fill in at guard or tackle if the starter is injured.
All right, let's jump over to Maryland, NC State. A little East Coast action here, Tone. I know left tackle Jalen Duncan is a guy a lot of people like, but I also know the opinions on him are kind of all over the place. So give me something on him and the rest of the guys in this game that you're keeping an eye on.
Jalen Duncan's a guy who, as a redshirt freshman, has always been on my list as a mid-round choice. He's athletic, he's nimble, he's mobile. He's your zone blocking type of lineman that can be used at tackle or guard. He's not a real strong guy, and it's always been something that really never filled out his game. He was someone who at times would get pushed around. If you watch the end of that Ohio State game, which was a game where Maryland was basically in it till the very end, Jalen Duncan got beat twice badly at the end of that game, which sealed the victory for Ohio State. I'm told that there are some significant off the field concerns with Jalen Duncan. So we're going to have to watch that as we go through the process. I think as a player with potential, he's more of your fourth round type variety at left tackle or guard, but he's got to get stronger. And those off the field issues have got to be answered. The thing about Maryland is they have a bunch of underclassmen who are entering the draft. They're probably not going to be in this game. Deontay Banks, the cornerback, who's going to be a day 2 pick. Raheem Jarrett, the receiver, we've talked about him before on this show, is a day 3 selection. A lot of decent players who probably won't be on the field. As far as North Carolina is concerned, they got 2 linebackers I like. Last show I talked about Peyton Wilson, the linebacker who is a second-day player, but has got free agent type of medicals because he's had shoulder injuries. And Isaiah Moore, who is a guy who can play inside, he can play outside. He's not going to wow anybody with his great athleticism, but all he does is make positive plays on the ball.
All right, let's jump to Pittsburgh, UCLA here, Tony. We talked about the strength of this running back class. One of them is the UCLA running back, Zach Charbonnet.
And all he does, he's former Michigan player, transferred to UCLA 2 years ago. And he's a guy, if you talk about a feature runner in the classical sense, that's what Charbonnet is. He's a big downhill grinder. He's got good short area quickness. He shows the ability to make defenders miss in a small area. But he's someone who will not only pick up a lot of yardage off initial contact, he will push the pile. He will carry the pile. And he is someone who really is a beast at the position. When you look at Pittsburgh, one guy who's not playing is Kalijah Cansey, who may enter the draft. People have mentioned him to me as a poor man's Aaron Donald. He's more of a smaller 3 technique type of guy that makes a lot of plays on the ball. They've got a real good pass rusher. The last name is Baldonado, number 87. Very explosive, makes a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage. It'll be interesting to see how he holds up against the run when he goes up against Charbonnet, because he's more of a pass rusher than a run defender. Charbonnet is going to really pose a terrific challenge for him.
All right, let's go to Notre Dame in South Carolina here, Tony. Notre Dame's going to be missing some of their guys that are coming out, but there are some players in this game to keep an eye on.
Yeah, so is South Carolina. I mean, the big one being Cam Smith, who decided he's going to enter the draft. And Cam Smith is very likely going to be, if he's not a first round pick, he's going to be a top 40 selection. He could be an early first round selection, depending on how he works out. As far as the rest of the guys from South Carolina, Josh Vann, who's a real good receiver, return specialist. It'll be interesting to see Spencer Rattler. I mean, which Spencer Rattler are we going to get? The quarterback from South Carolina who transferred over from Oklahoma. At times he looks like a world beater. Other times he looks like an egg beater. You just don't know what you're going to get with Spencer Rattler. He's got amazing ability. Just a matter of him playing consistently. Notre Dame, Jarrett Patterson has been a stalwart there. He's finishing out his college career. He's a guy who could play center or guard, middle round choice, who I think in the power gap sort of system in the NFL could be very productive. And then there's Brandon Joseph, the big safety transfer from Northwestern, who he's got good range. He's an imposing safety. He's an intimidating safety. He makes a lot of plays on the ball. Spencer Rattler better make sure he keeps an eye on number 16 when he puts that ball up in the air.
All right, let's go to Tennessee Clemson, Tony. This is one of the premier games in terms of teams that finished with, really good records, but just outside the college football playoffs. Unfortunately, a lot of these guys are not going to play in this game, guys that we talked about early entrants, especially Clemson up front. But we are going to see a couple guys like Tennessee right tackle Darnell Wright, who's going to the Senior Bowl. He's going to play in this game. And Clemson defensive end KJ Henry is going to play in this game too. And they might be up against each other.
Yeah, and I haven't heard anything about Brian Brise. I'm told he's going to enter the draft, but unless I miss something, I haven't heard that he's not going to play in this.
Nah, me neither.
They also have another good defensive tackle by the name of Tyler Davis, who smaller guy, but very explosive, more of that 3 technique lineman, number 13. He makes a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage. You mentioned KJ Henry. Offensively, keep an eye on the question I was asked before was about guards in the upcoming draft. Keep an eye on Clemson's left tackle, Jordan McFadden. Shorter guy, very good, moves well around the field, moves well on his feet. I project him to guard because he's only about 6'3". I think he's a potential day 2 pick. I mean, after Darnell Wright for Tennessee kind of falls off the cliff because I don't know if Tillman's playing, Jalen Hyatt's not playing. Hendon Hooker's hurt. So you're right. I mean, on paper, back in September, this looked like a great game. Now with everybody on the sidelines, you just don't know.
Hey, Giant fans, if you're listening to this podcast, you want to go to a game? Well, there's one more home game to go. Giants at Colts on New Year's Day. Go to giants.com/tickets to find your game, secure your seat. Limited seats are available, and no ticket fee. Special deal heading in for the new year if you're a Giants fan listening to this, or if you want to go check out a game, or you're a Jet fan, an Eagle fan in the area, you want to go check out some good football, winning your in game for the Giants coming up this Sunday. Go check it out. All right, Tony, let's keep going down our list here. Iowa, Kentucky. You're getting Iowa linebacker Butkus Award winner Jack Campbell in this game. We'll see. I would like to know from you how he projects to the NFL here, and then Kentucky has some good prospects too.
Yeah, I mean, I think Campbell's a day 2 pick. He is a guy who's got scheme versatility. He's got position versatility. You can play him on the outside. You can play him on the inside. He's got size. He's got speed. He's good moving in reverse. You can put him in coverage over a big tight end. You can use him up the field. I mean, Campbell is, at times, he's shown a lot of first-round ability. I don't think Iowa had the season that they expected this year. I think that Campbell's going to test off the charts. I do believe he's going to go somewhere early in round 2. And I think teams are going to fall in love with him because of that scheme versatility, because of that position versatility, in the sense that you can line him up in a number of linebacker positions. Iowa, again, has another outstanding tight end in Sam Laporta, who has been a little bit injured. I'm told he's likely going to play in this game, but he's one of those down the field pass catchers, a tight end that plays the position like he's a receiver, but he's also a tough guy, gets up in a crowd, will come away with the difficult catch, has been very productive. As far as Kentucky's concerned, kind of the luster was taken off that Will Levis. I don't think he's playing in this game. He's going to enter the draft. It's going to be an interesting story with Will Levis. We talked before about the Shrine game and the Senior Bowl. I think that if Will Levis goes to the Shrine or Senior and has a knockout week, he's going to be a first-round pick. But, as you mentioned in one of the first shows, Will Levis looks like one of those guys who is a big athlete that they said, well, let him play quarterback. He shows some incredible talent at times, and then there are other downs and other situations where you're scratching your head and you're saying, what's going on here? So Levis, like Anthony Richardson, he's more polished than Anthony Richardson, but he still needs a lot of work on his game.
Yeah, he's a big guy, right? He's 6'5". He's, I think, 230 or 240. He can run over people. He's mobile. He's got a big arm. But does he have that it factor as a quarterback playing the position, I think, is the question, right?
And to me, he doesn't. I mean, he strikes fear in teams because of his physical abilities, but the consistency isn't there. The consistent pass placement isn't there yet.
My guess is that a constant debate we're going to have, Tony, once we get through this process here, is who's going to get taken first, Levis or Stroud. I imagine that's going to be a conversation that we're going to be having a lot of.
And I think, like we had this conversation about Mac Jones a couple of years ago.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
If Will Levis goes to the Senior Bowl or even the Shrine game, because there's going to be NFL teams coaching the Shrine game, and has 3 practices like Mac Jones did at the Senior Bowl 2 years ago, it will be conversation, but it won't be an argument because Will Levis can stamp himself as the second quarterback in this draft.
It'll be fun to watch. All right, Alabama, Kansas State, Tony, Sugar Bowl, another, really dynamic game. And the good news about this, a lot of these Alabama guys are going to play. We're going to see Bryce Young. We're going to see Will Anderson in this game. I know there's a couple of guys from Kansas State you really like. And I don't think, let's start here. I don't think we've really talked much about Will Anderson since early in our season here. And I know you said you were a little disappointed he wasn't quite as productive early. Where are you on Will Anderson right now? Is he still a top 3, top 5 pick? Where do you think he's going to land?
Well, let me start. I wasn't disappointed. It's just that he had such an incredible season in 2021. And if you remember, it wasn't just talk about Will Anderson being the first pick of the draft when the season started in September. It was Will Anderson winning the Heisman Trophy, or Will Anderson being a Heisman Trophy candidate. He had a really good year when you look at the numbers. It just wasn't as dominant as his world record year in 2021. So, but when you look at it, I mean, he's still a big, explosive player who can come out of a 3-point stance, who can stand over tackle, who can rush the passer, who can change direction and get out to the flanks and make plays in backside pursuit. I mean, you look at this Alabama defense, Henry Totoa, the linebacker, Brian Branch, the safety, Jordan Battle, the safety. I mean, it's loaded. And then, of course, you got, Bryce Young on the other side of the ball. And one matchup, we don't talk about Kansas State. Kansas State has a cornerback by the name of Julius Brent, 6'2", 205 pounds, runs in the 4.4s, has all the measurables that teams want in a cornerback in the early part of the draft, early part being the initial 60 picks. Brent showed a lot of improvement in his game this year. Entered the season graded as a 7th-round pick. Now he's a day 2 pick. Did have his problems in that Big 12 title game. Got beat a couple times. Got called for pass interference. So keep an eye on, if you're looking at cornerbacks, keep an eye on number 23 in Kansas State, how he does against Bryce Young. It's going to be a good matchup. And I got to say, I'm very disappointed. I'm used to the Sugar Bowl being the last game on January 1st, although January 1st games are January 2nd. The Sugar Bowl is being played at 12 o'clock noon Eastern Standard Time. That's really unusual.
Yeah, well, that is strange. Agree 100%. All right, let's jump over Mississippi State and Illinois. And Illinois, Tony, has some players that I know that are making some noise here.
Yeah, specifically in the secondary. I mean, they've got some terrific players. Going to be interesting who's on the field. You start off with Devin Witherspoon, number 31, the corner, who is a feisty, aggressive, confident guy. He's got excellent ball skills. He's not afraid to mix it up in the pile. Deep speed's a concern with Devin Witherspoon, but he's still going to be a day 2 pick. Next to him is Sidney Brown, the safety, who's a smaller guy, but you want to talk about a guy who is always willing to throw his pads in a pile against the run, in the pass. Even though he's short in stature, he's an intimidating guy. His brother is the running back, Chase Brown, that's had a record-setting year. Smaller guy, but plays hard, plays tough, and he's also an outstanding pass catcher out of the backfield. And they have a guy who wasn't even graded coming into the season by the name of Jartavius Martin, who's their nickelback, who really, when he's facing the action in a zone-type system, he's got excellent ball skills. When he has to play over the receiver and he's got a transition or backpedal, it gets a little bit crazy for him. He's not as good in that sort of situation. And against Mississippi State, they're going to be playing against Will Rogers, the quarterback, who's had a terrific year, who's shown a lot of improvement in his game, who really took well to that Mike Leach system. So that's going to be a big challenge for those guys. Big opportunity as well.
Yeah, let's go to LSU Purdue, Tony. You mentioned Jaden Daniels returning to school. One player that's interesting to me is Charlie Jones, the Purdue wide receiver, who's had a really good year. He was a transfer. He's in his 6th year, so he's an older prospect, but he's been very productive, and he knows how to get behind the defense.
Incredible. And he's a twice transfer. I think he started at Buffalo, then he went to Iowa, then he ended up at Purdue, and he's had a great year. And he was Aiden O'Connell's number 1 target. He was the guy who couldn't be stopped. Real good receiver. I'm told he's got some medical issues. You got to keep an eye on that. Some issues with his hips. You go against LSU. They've always got some good guys in their secondary. Mecky Garner, the transfer from Louisiana, who's going to enter the draft, could be a day 2 pick, more of a middle round choice. Greg Brooks, the safety, it's going to be a good challenge for Jones. If he's playing in this game, I'm not sure he's even playing this game, but if he does, because I know Aiden O'Connell's sitting out the game. A lot of the Purdue guys are sitting out the game. It'll be a big challenge for Charlie Jones going to get up against that talented LSU secondary.
Let's go to USC Tulane here. I don't think Caleb Williams is going to play in this game, Tony, with the injury stuff in the last one, but I'm not sure about that. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then they're playing, you have a couple of players in this game that I think are really interesting for USC.
Yeah, as well as Tulane. I mean, it's great to see Tulane, playing a game like this. Tulane's got an outstanding running back, Tyjae Spears. I haven't really put my thumb as to whether or not he's going to enter the draft. He's an explosive guy. He's a terrific perimeter runner who also catches the ball well out of the backfield. I think when you look at Tyjae Spears projecting him to the next level, he's more of a situational 3rd down type back. They got some good guys in the defense as well. Dorian Williams, the linebacker, Nick Anderson, the linebacker, Larry Brooks, safety, Macon Clark, a safety. These guys are more late round, even priority free agent type guys who will make a roster at the next level as the 8th linebacker or the 7th defensive back. You look at USC, you got to start with their, especially on defense, their defensive lineman, Tuli Tuipiloto, who I'm told is going to enter the draft.
Good job, Tony.
Thank you, especially for me. There are some people who think he's going to be a first-round pick because he's a big, explosive pass rusher who can play in a two-gap system. I also like their cornerback, Mekhi Blackman, the transfer from Colorado, who's shown a lot of improvement in his game. Project him as a middle-round choice.
All right, let's go to Utah, Penn State here, Tony. Who jumps out? I know Penn State has the big left tackle that we really like. He's not going to come out, but I think people are already talking about top 5 pick for him in, the 2024 draft. Yeah. Who else in this game gets you excited?
Yeah, interesting in the sense that he bypassed $30 million in guaranteed salary to go back, but I'm told that there were some injury concerns, which is part of the reason why he went back. As far as Penn State's concerned, Penn State always has good safeties. They always put them on the field, and they got another one in Jair Brown, who is very complete, not a great athlete, but goes sideline to sideline, makes plays against the run as well as the pass. PJ Mustipher, who went back for another senior season, he's an explosive interior defensive tackle. He's a guy to watch. Utah always has good players. I mean, the guy to watch right now is Clark Phillips, their cornerback, who I'm told is going to enter the draft. Clark Phillips, what is it? Clark Phillips the third, who actually has it announced for the draft. I don't know if he's playing this game. And Dalton Kincaid, the tight end who filled in when their primary tight end, Brian Queef, went down with injury, and then Dalton Kincaid's game, took off. Dalton Kincaid was always known as a guy who had size, who had speed, but just didn't have a lot of production. That ended when Queef went down and Kincaid became the starter. And now Kincaid is really looking at himself as a mid-round choice, maybe even a day 2 pick if he tests as expected before the draft.
All right, let's get to our college playoff preview here, Tony. We'll start with Michigan TCU. Now, we did a lot of the Michigan guys already. If you guys want to go back, I think it's 2 episodes ago, we did our big Ohio State Michigan episode, and we talked about a lot of these guys on Michigan. But feel free to touch on anyone else from Michigan or reinforce something from that group, Tony, that you want. And then TCU's had a great year, and we kind of did a little thumbnail on Quentin Johnson earlier, but he's a guy that is vying for that top receiver off the board.
Yeah, well, the only thing I'll tell you about Michigan, from what I'm hearing and what I have reported, is that Mazi Smith, Mike Morris, and DJ Turner, all on the defensive side of the ball, are expected to enter the draft. They've got that terrific center. I'm not even Oluwatimi, he's a great football player. I don't know he's a great athlete, but he's a great football player with a great rating for the position. I think it's going to be a day 3 pick, one of those interior offensive linemen that are a 6th or 7th round pick and then go on to be a 10-year starter in the NFL. As far as TCU is concerned, I don't think Max Duggan gets the respect that he deserves, the quarterback. I mean,
he was great in that Big 12 championship game. Holy cow, was he unbelievable.
He's been outstanding all season long when he wasn't even the starter, wasn't even sure he was going to be the starter coming in. He's had a lot of different offensive coordinators there at TCU. He's really taken well to the system there. He's big. He's got an arm. He needs some polish on his game, needs to improve his techniques, but he's had a real good year. And I don't think people are talking about Max Duggan the way they should. We talked about Quentin Johnson. They got Darius Davis is a terrific downfield receiver for them. Tay Barber, another guy who's also an explosive return specialist. They've got some players in the secondary in Trevarius Hodge Tomlinson, who is a shorter corner, but he's got great ball skills, and he's a feisty run defender who can also play special teams. A lot of underrated talent on that TCU depth chart that people don't talk about.
Yeah, I want to dig in on Quentin Johnson before we get to our final game, Tony, real quick. I know you mentioned that he's kind of a take the top off the defense, big size, speed guy, right? Where is he lacking? Where does he still need to make some of those improvements to be a more well-rounded wide receiver?
Route running. He's got a very limited route tree, and he's got to learn that it's not just a straight line game, that he can get in and out of routes and separate. I don't want to brand him as one of those bigger athletic Big 12 receivers that everyone goes gaga over, while they watch them on Saturday, but they never pan out on Sunday. Hakeem Butler, hello, anybody? I'm not going to brand him that yet, but he's got to improve his route run. He also drops too many passes that he should hold on to. The ball goes slipping through his hands.
All right, keep an eye on that if you're looking for a wide receiver in the draft. All right, Tony, final game here, and then we'll do a review of these playoff games and bowl games coming up next week on draft season. Make sure you guys tune in for that. Georgia, Ohio State. and there is no shortage of players that are going to get drafted in this game, Tony. And it's funny. I almost feel like Ohio State is the best chance to knock Georgia off, and they're playing them in the first round of this thing. We'll see. But take this any way you want. What group do you want to dissect first?
Well, I mean, we could do a whole show on this game, right? As far as the draft is concerned. I mean, you look at Georgia, you look at their defense. I mean, they had what, 4 defensive players selected in the first round last year. Yeah. And in Jalen Carter, they're going to have a guy that's going to be a top 5 pick. I mean, Jalen Carter.
He might be the best of the whole group last year and this year.
And never mind the fact that, they lost 3 guys. 3 of his teammates graduated to the NFL last year. And here he is, how's he going to do? And he just improved. I mean, his game just took off this year.
He just dominates everyone. He's big size, speed, quickness, everything. He's got it all.
Athletic, can rush the passer, can stack well against the run. He's going to be a very early pick. He is going to enter the draft. Robert Beal's a good player. Keely Ringo, I know people are absolutely in love with Ringo. I have my concerns. Chris, when he was on one of the earlier shows, said, that there were some concerns about his game in the sense that he gives up some receptions that he shouldn't.
Yeah, Tony, for me, he's like he's almost like a tools cornerback, right? People love his size and speed, but
and the flashes.
Yeah, but the consistent, and I'll call it production. I just mean consistent play. I don't think is there yet.
There were a lot of lapses in this game.
Yeah.
That is a concern at the cornerback position. I mean, you've got to, Ahmad Gardner, there were lapses in his game, but he showed improvement. I don't see that sort of player in Keely Ringo. They do have an outstanding safety in Chris Smith, who I think is going to be a mid-round choice, going to play at the next level. You go to the offensive side of the ball. Kenny McIntosh was highly rated by scouts coming into the year. At times, Kenny McIntosh looks like a top 60 pick. At other times, you're wondering, where is Kenny McIntosh? He's not in the field. He's not productive. Broderick Jones, their left tackle, I'm told, is going to enter the draft. He's going to be a day 2 pick. I think the thing with Broderick Jones is, what are his measurables? Are teams happy with his measurables that they're going to keep him at left tackle? I have him on my guard board. You go over to Ohio State, and as I said, I believe I said the last show, what I'm told is after this game, you're going to see the floodgates open with Ohio State. And their underclassmen, a bunch of their underclassmen are going to enter the draft. C.J. Stroud, Paris Johnson, left tackle, Luke Whippler, the center, Kate Stover, the tight end, all underclassmen are going to enter the draft. You look on the defensive side of the ball, they've got some terrific players, terrific linebackers, and Steel Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg. I mean, this game comes down to Ohio State's got to get the ball in the end zone early and often. And when they get in the red zone, they can't settle for field goals, because if they settle for field goals, it's going to be another situation like what happened against Michigan, where Georgia will just steamroll over them late in the game.
Yeah, a couple things here, Tone, before we say goodbye. I think this is a huge game for C.J. Stroud. I got to be honest with you. I think you're going up against literally an NFL caliber defense that is really coached well, have a lot of good players. And it's not like Ohio State's outmanned. They have the talent. So I don't need C.J. Stroud to come out here and go for 375 and 4 touchdowns, but he can't be like 12 of 30 for 175 and 3 picks here. He needs to at least be good in this game, I think, to secure that draft stock.
When you look at it from a top 60 point of view, Ohio State has more top 60 players than Georgia does. It's just Georgia's got Jalen Carter, who, is going to be a very early pick. They got a quarterback in Stetson Bennett that plays over his head, overachieves, and does more than anyone ever expects of him. And they got a left tackle that's very consistent. So when you're looking at it from a next level perspective, Ohio State's probably has an edge over Georgia, but Georgia just finds ways to win because they execute and they overachieve and they basically play the way people expect.
All right, 2 other guys on Ohio State I want to touch on real quick. Ohio State usually develops really good running backs, Tony. What do you think of this Ohio State running back group this year? We haven't heard much about them.
Yeah, I mean, and they are not. I think those guys are injured and not playing. I don't know that they're even draft eligible. I mean, they look very good. They have a good offensive line in front of them. They look.
Neon Williams, I think, is draft eligible. Right? Am I wrong about that? I could be wrong.
Meon Williams is draft eligible. I've not heard. I mean, maybe he enters the draft. I've not heard. He's one of the few underclassmen that I've not heard about. I mean, like you said, we talked about the Oklahoma running backs. Ohio State running backs always do very well. Would like to see them more productive as pass catchers out of the backfield, but that's also CJ Stroud using them as pass catchers out of the backfield and improving his short passing.
All right, on defense, we've talked a lot about their offense. Zach Harrison and Tommy Eichenberg. Give me your little thumbnail on those two guys.
Harrison's a guy, can stand over tackle, can come out of a three-point stance, real good pass rusher, explosive, not a bad run defender. I mean, he's not a liability against the run. He's shown the ability to hold up, change direction, make plays in every area of the field. Like him as a middle-round pick. Eichenberg is a guy who's really jumped off the film this year. I mean, he is you talk about Ohio State running backs. Well, Ohio State linebackers, have a history of being that tough, punch in the mouth type of defender. That's what Eichenberg is. If he enters the draft, depending on how he tests and his measurables, maybe late day 2.
Good stuff, Tone. Anything else you want to throw out there about these bowl games, college football? You got anything before we say goodbye?
It's going to be fun to watch, especially Saturday. We basically said as far as Ohio State and Georgia is concerned, Ohio State's got to score early. I think TCU, you want to say that they are outmatched against Michigan. Well, we said that about TCU throughout the season. Every time you think TCU is outmatched and is not going to win the game, they find a way to pull it out. So I think both games can be very, very interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Dugan, he doesn't feel like an NFL quarterback to me. I think he's going to be kind of one of those really good career backups that can come in and give you a spark, win a few games. But his toughness, he could run it. I don't know. There's something about him that I think will keep this game against Michigan close. I'm with you. I think it'll be a fun New Year's Eve before everyone drops the ball and does some drinking. You can enjoy some good football before you get to that point on Saturday night. Tony, good stuff, my friend. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Absolutely. Happy New Year, everyone.
Thanks for joining us on Draft Season. It was all brought to you by Tommy Hilfiger, a PVH brand and an official partner of the New York Football Giants. And if you're Giant fans, go subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast as we head into the playoffs here. And we do interviews with Brian Dable, a Giants player, every week. We have analysts around the league, all that good stuff. Subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. For Tony Pauline, I'm John Schmeelk. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll talk to you in 2023.